Alright guys, such a coming here today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Major Rostermania updates overnight. Pred says that at least a couple of teams are definitely making changes. Los Angeles Thieves we think may well be one of them, but which player, if they are going to get rid of Kenny, would they bring in instead? A couple of key names also added onto the market situation last night, including Huke, who's been cooking in challenges on the Falcons Academy roster. What happens next for him and these other teams that might consider it? Surely more teams also might need to blow it up after some of the performances that we saw last weekend. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Fantastic shots here of the trio, now on 3 different teams. Of course, as it turned out, Simp kind of pops the FaZe up here. Knocked both of these guys out of the tournament. Whether that will continue for the rest of the season, we shall only see. Now, we're going to start with this tweet from Brian Sate at the Ravens. And when I saw this, first of all, I was like, I mean, come on, we were onliners, we were good online, went 5-0 with Exceed, turn up to LAN, got slammed. Did we really need an essay? But look, I will say there were some interesting revelations in here that Brian puts up publicly, which were absolutely remarkable, and just goes to show how much of a shambles Ravens is as an organisation. It's frustrating as a fan of the scene that Ravens are still here in the esports, but it is what it is. So, look, Brian Sate describes the challenge of turning up this weekend and getting slammed, of course, says they made more mistakes in one series than we had in all the matches leading up combines. They want to come back stronger for Major 2, etc., etc. But what he does say, which I thought was absolutely incredible, I will also not be running 2, I think he says running 2 Ravens socials, but I think what he means is he won't be running their socials anymore. And I don't think we knew until he tweeted this that he was running their socials. So Brian Sate literally does it all. I mean, is he running payroll? Is he HR? Like, I don't understand how Brian Sate is literally carrying this whole organisation on his back. But I will not be running Ravens socials anymore, as trying to balance that alongside with coaching, managing, team operations has been overwhelming this season, especially when the results aren't going well. Then he congrats the guys on Gentlemates. So, time to go dark and put in the work. Hashtag #DaFlock. So, I mean, did he come up with that hashtag as well? Like, he's literally doing everything for the organisation right now. So, it was a funny one, really. I mean, it's maybe not funny, but it is funny, but like, it's just so shambolic that this is how it is at the Ravens, it seems. And, I mean, it makes sense because it was these boys on Surge who a while ago they tweeted out at Ravens like, hey, where are you guys, right? Like, where are the tweets? Is there not a social guy like running the show? And, well, if you look on their Twitter, you'll find they don't tweet an awful lot. I mean, on the 29th of January, it just said, damn. So maybe that was the Brian Sate's work. But what is kind of confusing is that they're still doing these graphics, like someone's designing these graphics, even if they're AI generated, which maybe they sometimes are, I don't know. But whatever they're doing here, someone's still making these, so, or putting in the prompts to make them, I don't know. But like, we've got Brian Sate trying to walk out there on main stage to coach the boys after a tough map 1 loss, but before he does so, he's got to drop a tweet to say they just got slapped. So like, what are we doing here? And it makes sense maybe that Surge in hindsight were like, damn, my bad, Brian, because they did go radio silent Ravens on Twitter for some time, and now it makes sense as to why. So yeah, what an absolute shambles, right? It's like, nothing wrong with the players. I'm hoping the players and Brian Sate's getting paid whatever they can pay the minimum. I don't know, like, it seems that's the way the Ravens will operate, but it's like, come on, there's clearly zero intention for Ravens to grow the scene, to grow their own team, to grow a fan base. They're here to, break even, maybe make a smidge of a profit because of the revenue share of the team skins, which they don't sell any anyway. They were just taking OpTic's cut. That has now changed, so surely this all can't be long for this world, but we shall see. The other thing that was the big drama during the weekend was, well, certainly at the end of the weekend, the grand finals format, the straight-up best-of-7. Gentlemates win in 7, but OpTic, of course, 3-0'd them earlier on. Should they have had an advantage from winners? Now, there has been some talk, you're only talking about this because it was OpTic. I think there is some element of truth to that. It's getting more discussion because it was OpTic on the receiving end. But I think there's more to it than that. This tournament exemplified in many ways exactly why we have had problems. And it's not like we're only talking about this now. We've talked about this for years, that the winners bracket team should get a better advantage than they currently do, which is effectively just a map veto edge, which doesn't really count for much anyway, because the team from losers arguably is in a better position because they're hot coming into the grand finals. Map 1 of the grand finals, often, you'll see the team from losers might win, and, there's obviously more to it than that, and Gentlemates played very well and they deserve the victory, but it's still worthy of pointing out that I think everything at this tournament aligns to show why there are concerns here, and there have been for some time. OpTic literally 3-0'd them before, slammed them very quickly. They rematch in the finals. It was the absolute ultimate grueler series in the previous match that Gentlemates played against FaZe, but they won it. Insane momentum on the 5-2 comeback. So, just all the things aligns in the way that we say that they often can to mean that the winners bracket team certainly didn't have any advantage in the grand finals. And for all we talk about FaZe's record in finals, which is nowhere near good enough for them to be considered on the same level as Complexity and OpTic, when Complexity and OpTic were playing off and they were coming through the winners bracket and they were in a grand final situation with a massive advantage, with double best of 5 or whatever. So, you would expect them to win more percentage of their grand finals, you could argue. Whereas, now, obviously, sometimes they were coming from losers, but most of the time these top teams come from winners. With FaZe, that's not been the case in recent years. We know the drill. But anyway, Zinni says 2 best of 5s or even 2 best of 7s, like they do in Halo, is better than a BO9 one-map advantage, better than the current. As I say, I prefer the BO9. I don't love the double best of 5. I think it has some issues. The series can be over so quickly, etc., etc. But Myth has decided to give his perspective on it anyway after some of the drama of the last couple of days. But let's talk about Rostermania and what's going to happen next, because Thieves, they're probably the big conversation topic right now. They bombed out of the tournament top 6. 3-0'd by Gentlemates, 3-0'd by FaZe. Yeah, those two were the favoured teams coming into the tournament in many respects. People expected maybe a Gentlemates FaZe finals. It was very close to close to an OpTic FaZe finals, and then we eventually got the OpTic Gentlemates finals. The reality is, if you're going to be a top team, you can't lose in that fashion to those two rosters. And Kenny's record is kind of remarkable when his numbers are basically either a 1 flat. He's even had some series in the 1.2s in the recent couple of weeks against OpTic, against Ravens. Or it's a 0.6. There's no in between, really. It's either he gets absolutely piss-slabbed or he does his job very well. So it's what's going on here, right? And that's basically what Jacob says, who obviously has been with Los Angeles Thieves, coaching those guys in the past, even when Kenny was there back in the Cold War season, and says, look, either you figure that out, because if you can't figure that out, it's time to go. And he also mentions JoeDeceives. Now, if you wanted to consider who are the best 5 players in the game right now, best 5 players... Mercules, I'm not really doing this in order, but Neptune, Simp, Mercules, I would say JoeDeceives is 4th, and then probably Ghosty. I'd say that's probably my top 5 right now. But Joe just came top 12, and yet people are still considering him to be a top 5 player in the game. And I think probably justifiably so. So with that in mind, who should get Joe? The other point on JoeDeceives, and I'm not saying that Thieves are going to get him right now, but I'm just mentioning JoeDeceives as a key player in the Rostermania that will follow over these coming months. Not necessarily right now, but JoeDeceives should be a conversation point of the upcoming months, and that is because his contract, we think, ends at the end of this season. What Toronto might end up doing is keeping Joe for the whole year, kind of like Surge did with Pred back in Modern Warfare 2, knowing that he's going to leave at the end of the season for free anyway. So the question is that many have right now, if Toronto are probably going to lose Joe at the end of the season anyway, which, let's be honest, they almost certainly are, should they sell him for some money now while they can? That's a consideration. I don't think Toronto fans really want to think about that because, they've lost a lot of quality talents over the last few years, Toronto. Scrap being another example. Mercules slipped through their fingers to a certain extent as well. You don't want to lose JoeDeceives, but equally from a business perspective, JoeDeceives' stock right now is super high. People know he's really, really good at this game. If Thieves could go and get him, even if FaZe could go and get him, I think Jacob was even saying, I think Jacob even said that even OpTic should go and get him, or something like that. So, look, that's how highly he's rated. There might be an argument to say, try and go and pull the trigger or come up, figure out what the number is, so you can have that kind of conversation. That's what Jacob implies anyway, and the implication would be actually drop Kenny, bring in JoeDeceives, and figure it out, right? Someone goes to the flex. It's not like he's saying drop HyDra or something for JoeDeceives. No, he's suggesting you, put HyDra on the flex or something like that, and figure it out from there. But we're not sure he's been dropped. It's not confirmed yet, but we understand that it's pretty plausible that Thieves are at least contemplating what their replacement is going to be. The question, though, was, what about Neum? Is Neum the guy they go and get? Because we understand that they paid Huntsman and OpTic some money to, presumably anyway, to reserve Neum as an option that they could sign. And they have another few days to make that decision if they want Neum or not. If they decide no, then Neum goes back to being a Huntsman player full-time and stays on that roster, and they no longer have any power to do anything going forwards. But is Neum the right fit? You know, if the team isn't confident that they can win with Kenny, they need to make a change. However, are they confident they can win with Neum, or is there another candidate they could consider? It's a good question. Would they improve with Neum? I think, you know, is Neum going to drop 0.6s every 2 or 3 series? Probably not. And with that in mind, you can definitely see the logic that they should improve with Neum on the roster. But, you know, are they confident they can be a championship winner with Neum? That's a question. Maybe you've got to try it, but there's also other names that they could keep in mind as well. So let me share a couple of clips, certainly the JCap stuff. Then we'll talk about this other name which has been emerging.
What's going on that you're so prone to these stinkers? Or, you know, like we just got to get rid of you. Why are you so prone to the stinkers, and how can we fix it? How can you fix it? Because it's not like the team does have its issues. But at the end of the day, when you're dropping a 0.6, 0.7, you got to fix it. I'm pretty sure mine had like 10 to 20K more average viewers. Any type of tournament. Yeah, any type of tournament format gets eyeballs. Any type of tournament format is just more intriguing. Because it's just like, oh, winners semis, winners finals, the finals. Like, you're just talking about the bracket. Are we talking about Falcons? No, we're talking about LAT and Kenny. What's good, blood? What do you mean, fix it? Just get a kill, that's how you fix it? Yeah, Vita, no shit. I don't know. That's the rumor. I think they dropped Ken. Based on that Ghost of Hope tweet, that's his name, right? Ghost of Hope. He said 99%. So they're not, those intel guys aren't always right. But if we're saying 99%, that seems pretty close to a lock. If I'm LAT though, I'm still calling Toronto. I'm still hitting Toronto with that phone call asking about JoeDeceives.
So Prid says he knows there's a couple of teams that are making a change at the very least, and he knows which player they're contemplating. The other name, though, that's been emerging is QK4B. Now, I'm not 100% sure how you're better pronounce it, so I'll just call him QK for now. But Goach says he is easily the biggest piece of CDL Rostermania at this break. Very interesting. So this player has been on the Falcons Academy for some time. He's been doing really well with the Asim roster. I think it's the Falcons Academy Green that he's been a part of. He's been frying. Lots of players watched his POV say, okay, this guy's legit. And we know right now that there's a lot of impressive talent coming out of Saudi Arabia. There was a Saudi team featuring Kicks and Dahum, who were on the Falcons, of course, last year. They just won the Challengers tournament this weekend, beating the Bush 4-1 in the finals. So there's a lot of impressive Saudi players out there. QK is another one of them on the Falcons Academy. They've been looking good. So what do Falcons do? Do they put him in, maybe? Do they, say, all right, excellent, it's been a pleasure, but we're going to swap some roles around and QK is going to come in? That's an interesting option, but I don't think they will do that. Clayster mentioned a while ago that there was some interest in QK to be loaned out to another team. And that appears to be an option that they are exploring right now. So, yes, it's interesting to see that Falcons' commitments, because when they said as a franchise, like, oh yeah, we're really going to commit to this Saudi project, we're going to keep on Saudi players on our sub-bench and all of this, I think there was a general feeling of like, maybe, were those players going to get anywhere, right? Was there going to be the potential really among those players? But it turns out, yeah, the answer is yes. These guys have some serious potential. And now QK is potentially going to be loaned out to another franchise. Guess the question is, how many of these teams really should be making moves? Because, Pred says he knows for sure that there's 2 teams making a change. You go down the list of teams and you think, okay, what actually needs to give? Cloud9, surely something should happen there. Boston, I don't think they will do anything, but they probably should at least consider it. Toronto, a role swap at the very minimum, but they could also make a change. Surge, for sure should do something. Heretics, there's some consideration there. Thieves, obviously, you'd imagine will. So there's a good handful of teams that I think should be in the roster change conversation here. Maybe not as many initially as we thought could be the case. But look, what are these guys going to do? Because look, if QK has multiple offers, then it's pretty clear that there are multiple teams maybe not changing, but certainly considering changing. So very much interested to your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.